listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.
Well, Andy, why is it important that people are developing and growing a personal audience?
I think now more than ever, it's important as the sort of rise of AI, whereby people can sort of provide anybody with information now. Like if I wanted to provide you with information on something, then I could. If I could give you a how to do something, tips, tricks, hacks, so on and so forth, anyone really now has access to that information just with a few clicks of a button. Like I can go into ChatGPT right now, I could ask it, how do you build a personal brand? It will, and ask it for some content ideas. It will do that. And then I could just say that to camera. But I think right now we're in a bit of a trust recession where no one really trusts anyone because the market has kind of been oversold to. I feel like since everybody's sort of shifting their focus online now. A lot of people growing online businesses with the rise of like content creators, so on and so forth. Everyone's kind of selling something. And so therefore a lot of people are a little bit like they're not willing to give their cards out. They're a little bit holding them to the chest a little bit. They're not willing to trust anyone. And I think building a personal brand is just sharing areas of you and what makes you unique. And in doing that, it opens you up to be more trustworthy. It opens you up for people more likely to trust you. So sharing things about what you do in your day-to-day life, your hobbies, your interests. Do you like golf? Do you like watching football? Do you like going for long walks? Do you like going for hikes? Like just these little elements that make you, which a lot of people I think tend to hold off on, and they feel like, no, I just need to get value. I think by sprinkling that into your content, it's what's going to separate you from everyone else. Because I believe there's billions of people on Instagram. So like you've got quite a task on your hand to try and separate yourself from everyone else. If you're just giving tips and tricks all the time, that doesn't make you unique in any way. Like why should someone trust you? Why should someone follow you? And then ultimately, if you're selling something, why should someone buy it from you? So what can you add into your content that builds your personal brand and actually makes your content personal?
Do you think that people should just copy and paste across the different social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, or is there one that they should really focus on?
I'm a big fan of, have you ever read the book, The One Thing?
I have.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of sort of having a similar approach to when it comes to your content. I think you should get really good at one platform first, figure that platform out. And then once you've figured it out, then start experimenting across platforms. Because I think the biggest barrier for a lot of people is that overwhelm is, they feel this need to be posting on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, have the newsletter. There's so many different like points where they think they need to be, and it becomes overwhelming. And so therefore they never start in the first place. But they do start, but then they don't really do very well on one particular platform because they're spread so thin across multiple platforms. And I think you do have to create specifically for the platform. Like, yes, you can create a YouTube video and take snippets from that and then post it onto your Instagram. But equally, I think that should be balanced out with content that is specifically created for that platform. I think that there's nothing wrong with creating content for a YouTube video and then taking that content, putting it on Instagram. But I also think you should purposefully create for that platform. Yeah.
Okay. So that specialization, and then after you've mastered or got your one thing, you can then move to the other aspects and the other situations. I'm somebody, and you kind of mentioned on this, is once you have the idea, you can then immediately compare yourself to where you want to be, are people who are really, really good at it, whether that be a podcast or creating social media. And then you're immediately, you either start to make a checklist of everything you need. I need the lighting, I need the camera, I need, that editing. And you get overwhelmed, or B, you're just like, I'll never be that good. Or you start to make one and it's terrible, and then you just stop. In your experience, why should you continue or push through that to become good? And B, does that really matter? Like, is there a section where it's like good enough and it doesn't matter if the content is better, meaning like better edited, better quality? Is there just like a bare minimum that we're trying to get to, and then everything else is just icing on the cake there?
I think for anybody who maybe isn't started or is maybe inconsistent, I think the most important thing is you're just posting something. I think if you're always striving to like, I can't post this because it doesn't look like this, or I need a microphone, or my content doesn't look like this person. Maybe there's someone within the industry that you look up to, right? I feel like all of us have someone who we like admire. We're like, I'd love to get to where they are. But if you're constantly in that comparison trap and thinking, well, mine doesn't look like theirs, so why would anybody come to my content? You're never going to get to where they are because you're not putting the content out. So I think for anybody, it is just putting stuff out and putting it out at a relatively high volume, because in doing that, you can iterate quicker, you can get better quicker, and you can realize what you're good at and what you're bad at, and then where you can make those improvements. Like with my content, when a lot of people come to my content and maybe they just send me a DM, normally it is that they like the way that it's filmed, they like the way that it's shot, they like maybe my tonality within the content. But I put a post up about this week, whereby I spoke that I've been doing this for like 10 years now. Like I started recording on a YouTube channel when I was sort of 18, 19-ish, and I'm 31 now, recording like my fitness journey. And if you saw those videos back then, I removed them now because they are embarrassing. But if you saw those videos back then, like I was so awkward on camera. It is like night and day comparison to now. But however, it's taken me 10 years to get to where I am now, where I feel fully comfortable in front of camera. And it's taken 10 years of just continually posting on different platforms. It's always like it's changed in terms of the outcome that I've wanted from it, but I've just constantly been putting out content. The frequency has always been up, down. I'd say in the last 2 years, it's been at a consistent, like relatively high volume, because I've sort of gone all in on it. But I've been doing it over and over and over again, and I haven't let my lack of equipment get in the way. Like when I first started, I had like some cheap old camera that I brought when I was like 15. That was all I had. I didn't have a microphone. I didn't have lights. I didn't have anything. I just had that, which to be honest, back then was probably worse than most people's iPhone now. But I just recorded on that because that was all I had. I didn't really think like, I didn't know about microphones and lights and so on and so forth. So I didn't really think about it. So 100% just use what you have access to, with the aim to get better. I don't think we should just be like, I'm just going to use what I have and never invest in it. I think as and when you can, invest, make improvements where you can. But also just start posting, just start putting stuff out there, because not only are you going to get feedback from those that consume the content and you'll begin to identify what is good, what is bad, but also you'll be able to identify your strengths and weaknesses and where you can make improvements, and then just try and improve that as quick as possible.
Just give me one quick moment, then we'll be right back to the episode. If you are enjoying the show, go ahead and give me a follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. It helps way more than you'd think. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating or a review, that helps new people find the show as well. And if you have any questions or comments or recommendations for guests, go ahead and reach out to me at Chase C. Merrill on Instagram, or leave a comment right here on Spotify. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get back to the episode. I think Mr. Beast, he talks about like just posting your first 100 videos. He's like, nobody's going to watch them anyway. Doesn't matter. So don't spend a ton of time on those things. Just try to make your videos as quick as you can, and then iterate one thing between each additional video. And if you are just making those changes over the course of those 100 videos, you're going to be heavily improved. And at that point, people will start watching. So just getting 100%. That content out.
Yeah, like I had the same approach with my current Instagram. So I've had multiple different Instagrams and videos from going from that sort of fitnessy journey to where I am now, the current Instagram I've had for about, it's probably been 2 years on the dot now. And I literally set myself that exact same challenge. I was like, I'm going to post every day for the next 100 days and then just iterate quicker and just find out what works. Maybe it's changing the hook. Maybe it's changing the placement of your captions. Maybe it's changing the light. Maybe it's changing the topic you talk about. But if you, with every single piece of content you put out, can find one area where, oh, I could have done that a bit better, then yeah, like between video 1 to video 100, they're going to be completely different. Hopefully in a positive aspect.
It's funny that you mentioned like you went back and you deleted your old videos on YouTube. One of my favorite things is somebody that I look up to in the podcasting space who I think has had like an amazing journey is like Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom. Amazing podcast, like amazing host. But what I love is that like he started on YouTube and I can go all the way back and see his very first videos. And so what it's really cool is like it gives me a sense of direction as and also like a sense of, oh, I'm not worse, because I can go back and be like, okay, on this episode compared to his number episode, the same episode, I'm like, oh, it looks a little bit better, it's a little bit crisper maybe. And so you can then compare somebody who's like at one of the best in the world at what they do in that aspect, and then you can get that validation like, hey, they started terribly as well. And so I think it's really cool to be able to look back at these big names and these big things and compare where they started, because they started just like everybody else.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. And when I find maybe someone that I've discovered new for the first time, like I've never consumed the content, but a video, particularly on YouTube, like a video pops up. One of my favorite things to do is actually like rank by like oldest first. So just be like, where were they at? Like if it's someone that I admire, I'm like, where were they at? How long have they been doing this thing? And just, I like to consume some of like their really old content to just see how far they've come. Like, yeah, if you look at Chris Williamson, a great example where it was like one microphone dangled between them in this massive echoey room. And there's loads of like ums on hers. There's constantly like, like constantly going on in the background, compared to like his big cinematic productions that he does now in the space of however long it's been, like multiple years. It's cool to see that journey, and also still continually to get better and better and better. Like every time you consume a video of his or a podcast of his, you think that can't get better, but year to year it does seem to be just marginal gains. Like it is a bit better, it is a bit better, it is a bit better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the best things that has helped me when starting kind of a podcast or new things. It's just the ability to look back and compare and just know like, hey, but also the ability. Recently for me, I had this conversation with somebody a few months ago, but just the conversation of creating versus consuming. Like we are in a consumption based world as it is, like scrolling on YouTube, on Netflix, on Instagram, there's always something being consumed. And once you try to break out or move into a creating space, you don't want to consume as much. Like you're like, oh, that was really cool. Let me go see if I can recreate that or do something better on my craft or improve my abilities in some way. And so you're thinking about creating more, and then that takes you off of the consumption path, and then things really start to change. And so for me, really focusing on being a creative, putting something out there versus consuming has been a huge mindset shift as well.
Yeah, I find I'm a bit of an anxious person as well. I'm quite easily like, my anxiety can quite easily be heightened. And I find if I do go through a period, not like actively doing, like I'm not purposely doing, but if I on my phone a little bit too much that day, I do find like I get a little bit just, I say to my girlfriend sometimes, like I just feel like a little bit up here. Like I just feel quite high, like I'm a bit jittery sort of, and I don't feel myself. I don't feel relaxed. I'm quite a calm guy normally. And I can always relate that to where I have just consumed too much. And in consuming too much, because typically you consume people that are in a similar field to yourself, same niche, doing maybe the same thing. In doing that, you then begin to doubt the things that you're creating. You then begin to question whether like what you're doing is right. And there's just all these little elements of self-doubt that start to creep in when you over-consume, but also are just continually consuming people within the same space as you. So what I do to sort of, or what I've been doing to try and counteract that is I'm most creative first thing in the morning. I find like that sort of 6 a.m. to sort of 10 a.m. sort of period, that 4-hour window is when my creative juices are flowing. So I do my best to just not be on my phone during that time period. I might quickly reply to like emails and messages from clients that are received, but beyond that, I'm not going on social media. I'm not doing anything outside of that. It's my time to be creative because then I'm not influenced with anything that I create in that time period. And then I give myself like pockets of time throughout the day to then consume. But yeah, I find I'm very similar whereby you can very easily be influenced by just overconsumption, which I think is why it's important also to be careful of who it is that you follow and who it is that you are consuming.
Absolutely. I find, because I also find myself getting like anxious if I overconsume. I think my anxiousness may come from a degree of like, oh, you're not doing enough, because like you're watching all these people, and it's a curated highlight reel of people's life. That's what social media is. And so when you're subjected to that constantly and you're sitting there consuming, you're not really doing anything else. And so you have this rise of anxiety, like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. And there was a quote that I heard where it was like, general ambition causes anxiety, but specific ambition causes purpose. And so like if you have a general ambition but you don't know where to put it, so like you're an entrepreneur, or there's somebody, a creative or whoever that is, who has their own business but they don't know what that is yet, and so they just have this ambition, and so they're just trying to get stuff done but nothing's actually moving the needle forward. Like I find myself, like if I'm feeling that anxiety, I'll just like deep clean the house, and I'll be like, cool, I did something productive. And I'm like, well, not really. Like nothing's changed. You're just in a cleaner house. And so that general ambition leads to that anxiety. So if you can find that purpose, whether that be creating, whether that be a business, you can then channel, when you get that anxiety, into something that actually moves that purpose forward. And that has been huge for me.
Yeah, it's almost like nervous energy where you're like, it's anxious energy, and you're like, I need to do something, and then you just put it into something, but sometimes it's not like swallowing the frog. It's not doing the thing that's going to move that needle forward. It's just doing something. So it's like putting the washing away. It's like loading the dishwasher. It's like folding your clothes. It's like doing all these like minuscule tasks that aren't actually proactive to the thing that you actually want to be doing, which then even continues to build the anxiety even more. Because then you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I haven't done the things I said I was going to do because I was doing these random tasks, which didn't really need doing until the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah. For me, I find that comes in the form of like, you can't have a podcast that interviews guests if you don't have any guests. And so for me, like a lot of like the priority of my day is like reaching out, finding guests, talking to people that I'd be interested in. But I mean, it's a lot of work. Like I don't know who I don't know. I need to find like people in areas and fields that I like, and then I need to kind of see if I would talk to them. And so there's a lot of time that I'm just like scrolling on Instagram because I'm trying to find people and then go to people they like, similar niches and stuff. And so you're like, well, let me work on this part of the podcast, or let me work on this. And then it's very easy to dilute yourself and to be like, oh, I'm helping the podcast. And then it's like, well, it doesn't matter if you don't have any guests. And so I always find it, people know what they need to do to improve, whether that's in fitness, nutrition, whatever that is. You know what you need to do by your base desire not to do that one specific thing, because that's usually the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah, no, and I think the same thing can be like related back to content, whereby I think everybody knows what they kind of need to be doing. Like they know the creative process. Typically, you need to write your content out, or at least jot a few ideas down. You need to then film it. You need to then edit, and you need to then publish it. But because we don't create a bit of an action plan to do that, we kind of just bundle it all together. I think I need to make something rather than like, no, I need to script something. I need to edit something. I need to film something, rather than breaking down the process. We just think of the end target, which is I need to create a piece of content. And then it just becomes all too overwhelming because there's so many steps to achieve that end goal. And so either nothing gets done at all, or you start it, or you then get frustrated by it, and then you're like, no, this is rubbish, like I don't like it, and then nothing happens. And then we just constantly get stuck in that cycle.
So you do recommend like scripting things out, and do you, to that point, do you script just the vocals, just the words, and then do you also plan out like shots, how long the video is going to be, when you're going to make your cuts, stuff like that?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of like fitness professionals and stuff like that. So I quite like to relate things back to like having a workout plan and stuff like that. Just because it's easy to like visualize. But like is imagining having you have like two people. One person is just going into the gym and just doing whatever comes to them that day. And then you have another person who knows what they're doing on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can almost guarantee you know which one's going to get the better results in 6 months' time is the person who has the structure. They know exactly what they're doing, on what days, why they're doing it, and they're constantly just chipping away. Whereas the person who just has like no plan, maybe skips a couple of days here and there, just like is a bit all over the place, you know they're not going to have that same end result as that other person who's well structured. And so, yeah, when it comes to my content creative process is I have set days and I actually schedule into my diary what I'm doing and on what days. So it might be every week will change a little bit, but I will plan it on a Sunday. So if I've got different calls in different days and meeting one day, like, but I'll know what my week looks like and know what's going where. So for example, after this call today, I've blocked out a 2-hour window when I'm going to be scripting a few ideas. And that's that like period. That's that part of the creative process done for me. And then tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll film those. And then on Friday, when Friday comes about, I'll probably edit a few of those. But I know like each week what things I'm doing on each day. So my idea is to not necessarily publish something every day, but I should do something creative every day that's moving the needle. Whether that is scripting, whether that is filming, whether that is editing, whether that is just sitting down and like brainstorming some ideas. Like I feel like you should do something every day because then every day you're chipping away at that creative process. And I just put time blocks in. Each time block's different because I'm more efficient in some areas than I am in others. So like I put a lot of time into the scripting, but actually for me, the filming process, I can probably film 10-ish videos, 8-ish videos in about an hour, assuming the scripting process was good. That's sort of like that is my workout plan is the scripting. So then I'm just reading it at that point. I find that really easy for me. The editing takes a little bit of time, but that's just because it's a time consuming process, depending on the level of edit you want. If you just want to chop it up and put some captions on it, it can be pretty quick. When it comes to like my filming process, I've got it down now to where I've found what works for me. I've heard Ali Abdul talk about this in the past of sort of like format jealousy, where you look at someone else's content and you get a little bit jealous in the way of what it's presented online. You think, oh, that's great. I love that. But then I think we forget to ask ourselves the question, but do I actually want to create something like that? Like, would I enjoy that? It's all well and good saying that is an amazing piece of content. I'm really jealous of how they've made that. But do you want to make that? So when I see people and they're doing maybe scripts, and with every script, there's where every line, there's a different shot. They're filming in a different location. I'm like, that's really cool, but I don't think I would enjoy doing that. And therefore, if the enjoyment isn't there, I'm not going to do it because I don't enjoy doing it. Whereas I really enjoy just setting up the camera, setting up my lights. Like I enjoy the whole pre-production thing, making myself like a tea or coffee, sitting down and just like having a chat with the camera. Like I really enjoy that. That's like my favorite way to create. And then just spending some time in the edit. And then in the edit, if I think, oh, do you know what? This could maybe do a bit of B-roll. Then I'll just go grab a couple of clips on my phone. I don't overthink it. I don't think, oh, I have to film these on my camera. I've found for me that works the best because I enjoy it the most. And I think that's the sort of the secret, if you will. It's just finding the process, the format that you enjoy the most. Because yeah, I look at like really talented filmmakers, I'm like, that's incredible. Maybe I should be making something like that. But then I think the time that's gone into that, and then I'm like, I don't actually want to make something like that. I really enjoy my format. You just again, there's that element of comparison, there's that element of doubt of maybe I should be doing that thing, the shiny object syndrome. You're like, that's really cool, but do you know what? I'm going to stick with my thing because I'm really good at that and I really enjoy that.
It's funny that you say that. I've always, for me, I was like, okay, you need to start creating that. For me, that started with YouTube, like making YouTube videos, and it was just a slog for me because like what I enjoy, like the aspect that I've learned to enjoy is I like this. Like I like the podcast, I like learning, I like talking. I don't like the scripting out and seeing where it goes and setting up my phone and doing all the editing. That's not where I enjoy it. And so just spending the time and the hours on what I thought I should be doing in terms of creative, it was miserable. And so I burnt out quickly multiple times when I started doing it versus this. It's just a blast end to end. Like I enjoy it. And the aspect for me, like, is the communication and the connection and where we go and what we learn as we talk. And there's not a lot of post after this. Like I'll chop off the end or the start and the end just to trim it up. And then it's just our conversation wherever it goes. And for me, that has been just extremely liberating because like you said, I can enjoy a YouTube video. Like Ali Abdul makes phenomenal YouTube videos and I try to make them, but I don't like to actually make them. So I'm more than happy to just watch him and get inspiration. And then I can do this over here. And that's been a valuable lesson.
Yeah, 100%. I think like you said at the start with like, should people be posting on multiple platforms? And it's like, you get a lot of people saying that like X platform, not as in X, the actual platform, but just like insert any platform is the place to be right now. Like you're missing out if you're not on this platform. And so immediately people are like, oh, I'm like, maybe I should start posting on there, like LinkedIn. Like I've seen a few people right now being like, LinkedIn's the place to grow. And I'm like, but I don't want to post on LinkedIn. Like that's not that I like making videos. That's my favorite style to create. So then why would I start creating over there? Well, because some person told me it's the place. Maybe it's the place for people like that person. And of course, maybe there's a business that they have behind that. And therefore that's why they're encouraging you to post over there. So I think it's just questioning where you actually enjoy creating the most. Like I really enjoy short form content because I can condense my information down quite quickly. And it's quite snappy. I quite like that. Like when I was a videographer, I never did any sort of like high production stuff, like any big filmmaking stuff. Initially, when I got into videography, I was like, oh, I'd love to get into like big commercials and stuff like that. I feel like it's the natural transition for a videographer is to become like a filmmaker or a creative director. But then when I did like a couple of them where I sort of assisted on a few things, and I was like, I hate the time frame from an idea to it eventually being published being so long. I was like, I hate this. This is awful. And then so that I started going more into social media because I was like, I can have an idea, make it and create it all on the same day. I can work with a client and work with them in the morning and give them something that evening for them to post that morning. I love that, the efficiency of it. So yeah.
When do you know, if you do know, that it's time to delete an old Instagram account or something and start a new one? For example, we'll take my own. Very big fitness background, like had a lot of followers that followed me for fitness, getting tens of thousands of views, thousands of likes. And then I stopped fitness and I stopped posting like 2 years, like cold, and like maybe one or two posts because I found my wife, we got married, but I was just social media hiatus, went posting every day. And then now trying to revive that account has been a very slow process because I went cold turkey. I stopped posting. I stopped doing that. Is there a time, if you change your niche or if you do something a little bit different, or if you're just been so inactive that it's time to create a new account or do something different?
I think it's paying attention to the processes that you've gone through in the past with that account, because that account is going to have a certain audience tied to it. Like over the years of posting, certain people have come to that account for the things that you've been sharing. Like that's how it works. So to give you an example is the account that I'm on now is actually my third account, my third third account. I had an account, like I say, like 10-ish years ago, which was all fitness related. I was a PT at the time. I was building a personal training business, online coaching business. And so all the content that I created for that was for that one thing. That's all I talked about. It's health and fitness, health and fitness, health and fitness. So the audience that I built for that only wanted me for that thing. Then I went into videography, and I didn't even attempt it. I was like, this audience isn't going to want me talking about cameras and stuff like that. Like, they're just not going to care for this. So I was like, I'll set up a new one, because in my mind, I was like, that just makes perfect sense. And then I started growing that account, and that's actually where I got all of my business from, was from that account. And then the account that I've got now, I started, before I started it, I was a little bit more experimental with the content that I was creating on the more videography based account. And it just wasn't hitting the mark at all. And I just thought, like, there's no negative to me starting another account and starting fresh. Like, I'm not relying on this account for anything. Like, there's no disadvantage for me just starting fresh, because I'm just going to be building a new audience. So I sort of just bit the bullet, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to set up a new account. I'm going to build an audience that I actually want to build, who are all coming to me for this thing. And I just went ahead of it. And as soon as I started doing that, it got relative traction quite quickly, because that audience was coming for that specific thing that I was talking about, rather than this other audience of sort of, again, we're here for this other thing. So I think there's no definitive answer of being like, if you see these signs and signals, then that is the sign that you should start a new account. I think if you in the past have had an account and you haven't posted on it for years, and you've made this complete like 180 with your content, it's completely different now, and you're not reliant on that account in any way, I don't think there's any harm in just starting a new one and being like, you know what, I'm just going to build an audience for this thing over here. But alternatively, again, if you're not reliant on it, then there's nothing wrong with just trying to build a fresh audience, just being aware that the people that are currently following you for the stuff that you've posted in the past, you might have a bit of a dead audience. So however many followers you've got right now, they might not interact with any of the new stuff, which could be a signal to Instagram that, like, this content isn't very good. We're not going to share it with other people, because the audience that already follows him doesn't care for that content. So I don't think anybody can really know the answer to that question, because we're not amongst the meta people. But I'm a big fan of just starting fresh if you're not reliant on a certain account. Like, if it's not a source of income or anything on those lines, I can't see any harm in doing so.
In your opinion, is Instagram pushing a certain type of content? Like, you always see people who are like, do this to go viral, do this to do that, keep the video under 15 seconds, loop the hook in the end so people get more watch time. Is there a specific thing that people should be creating and following to get the most out of it, or is it just create good content?
I think that statement there at the end is just create good content, but also create a variety of different content. I think, don't think I'm just going to create 7-second reels, and that's all of the content I'm going to create. Because that will perform well, but then you're just going to become the 7-second reel person. You can't get anything valuable across in 7 seconds, or anything of in depth across in 7 seconds. So I think stop posting a particular type of content and post a variety of different pieces of content. Realistically, we want to be assuming there's a business tied to this. There's some sort of monetization process tied to this. You want to be posting 3 different types of content. all trying to achieve different outcomes, which I think then makes it a lot a bit easier to approach, because I'm posting this type of content to achieve this outcome, this to achieve this, rather than posting one type of content, expecting it to grow your audience, build trust with your audience, and then also sell to your audience all at the same time. It's just not really going to happen. So you want to be posting one type of content, which is like growth or audience or reach based content. Basically, it's trying to reach as many people as possible. That's the aim, the main goal of it. And that's typically going to be this very short, actionable piece of information. Maybe a tip on something along those lines, like more of your traditional content, if you will. Then the second one is more authority, trust building based content. And that's you actually sharing some knowledge, sharing some value, and going real in depth in something, whereby when someone consumes that content, they can see that you know what you're talking about. Like you've walked the walk, you seem like an authority within your space. And then finally, we've got like your conversion based content, your sell based content, which typically is of a similar notion to that authority based content. But there's going to be some element of call to action at the end where you're encouraging those that have consumed the content to go somewhere. Maybe it's to send you a keyword to activate some sort of email list subscription, whether it's to sign them up to a new product that you've launched, whether it's sending them a link to a new digital product, a coaching program, whatever it may be. There's some element of like call to action at the end. I think if you're ticking all of those throughout the week, then you're going to like tick all the boxes. You're going to slowly grow your audience. You're going to build trust with that audience, and then also your end, because we're not just posting content for the fun of it. Like there's an outcome tied to it. You're actually building a business at the same time.
Earlier, when we started, you mentioned that it was important to like sprinkle in parts of your life and your personality into the content that you create. Do you find, because you've also said you've made 3 different accounts, one was fitness, one was videography, and then the one you have now, do you think it's more valuable to create the account that's built around you so you can introduce these 3 different things because people are following you because they're following you, or to create that specific niche account out of the go?
I think especially at the start, you should have a focal point. You should have something that you are particularly known for. And it's something that you're always addressing within your content. So whether it is you are a fitness coach, you are nutrition related, you are whatever, insert whatever niche you want into that. I think there should always be a focal point. But within that, you're sprinkling in elements of you to the content. And what I mean by doing that is it isn't you, like it isn't me, for example, my majority of my content is personal branding based and content related based. It isn't then me telling you how to run your first 5K just because I'm interested in running. It is me when using analogies, when using metaphors, when using B-roll, is showing off those other things that make up who I am. So it is using B-roll of me running. It is using B-roll of me on hikes, of me making coffee, with my dog. It is me sprinkling in personal stories of those things, of those hobbies, interests that I can somehow relate back to the personal branding. So you're getting parts of you across within the content without specifically talking about those things. I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think the more your audience actually grows, the more that gives you freedom over time to then go beyond your niche. I think you need to be specific at the start, and then you can sort of spread your wings a little bit. So like if we look at like Ali Abdaal, for example, if you go back over his previous YouTube videos, his was predominantly a medical student teaching you how to be a better medical student. That was his niche. Like that's what he did. But as his audience has grown, it's now productivity based, but he also talks about business. He also talks about productivity. He also talks about YouTube growth. These are all these other areas that he talks about, but he was niched down at the start. He was very much, I talk about this specific thing. But as his audience has grown, it's given him the freedom to just talk about more things.
To continue on that line of Ollie, I know he's a big fan of outsourcing his editing on YouTube. Is that something that you think people should consider doing if they can budget that?
I think so. I think it's just a time thing. The things with editing is it's a very time consuming task, specifically if you want to put quite a lot of detail into the edit. As I said earlier, if you're just chopping up a few clips and cutting out the ums and ers and stuff like that, and you're literally just putting some captions on it, that's not going to take you long at all. It might take you 15 minutes. But if you're adding maybe some B-roll in there, adding some music in there, if your captions are manually edited where you're putting them in specific areas, that's all quite time consuming and take time, which for some people might also be a skill that they're just not very good at. I think if you have the budget and the finances to get someone else to do that, then I think by all means, because it means that you can then put your effort into the things that you're really good at, which might be the scripting, which might be you can just you can film more videos, which means now that you can just put it out at a higher frequency. But I think if you are hiring an editor, again, find an editor that is going to be reflective of your brand. You don't just want something generic, right? Just now looks like, again, the thing with editing is your content can very quickly just look like everybody else's purely from the edit, purely by the way it's been edited. So I think if you are hiring an editor, be very specific as to what it is that you want from that edit. Make sure it looks exactly how you want it to look, rather than just paying someone a very small fee to save you some time. I'd rather you, if that's the case, you edit yourself. At least then it feels a little bit more unique to you. Whereas if you're just paying someone a fee to just make it look like everybody else's, now again, you've just blended into everybody else.
My wife, she's a first year medical student, but she's also started to create a little bit. TikTok is what she's been going on. Recently started it. Like her goal was to get 1,000 followers before her birthday in June, and I think she started this in February. She's already well past 1,000 followers.
Nice.
Yeah, this week or over the weekend, she recently had a post that went. I think she's at like 1.3 million views on it on TikTok.
Wow.
Phenomenal post. She's doing great. With that said, how can people capitalize on the virality of a post by gaining more followers? Because you'd think, a million views. If I even capture 1% of the people that view it, that's 10,000 followers right there. Versus, she's gained a couple hundred from it. How can you create content and create a profile that's people want to follow?
I think when capitalizing on something that's gone viral, it's questioning, why did it go viral? Was it the topic? Was it just the way that it was filmed? Ask yourself those questions. I look at the comments as well, because if it goes viral, typically it's going to get a lot of comments. So like, what is the feedback that you're getting from the audience as to why they enjoy that? And then can you just replicate that, but quite quickly? Like I find when a post tends to take off, it's going to elevate all the other content around it quite quickly, because people go into that sort of bingeability like part where they're like, oh, what else does this person have to offer? And typically it's going to refer to the most recent posts that you've done, the few before that, and maybe the ones after that, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time for a post to gain a bit of traction. So you might have posted some content since then, and then it elevates everything else. But with regards to I find with viral content, like viral is very like dependent, right, on how do you define viral? Like, what does that mean? Like some people it's 100,000 views, others it's 500,000, then it's 1 million. I think it's all relevant to audience size at the time. But I find viral videos just happen here and there. I don't think you're always going to get them. Like I've had some where you get a random post, and sometimes I cannot put my finger on why that took off. There's no explanation for it. I'm just like, I don't know why this is going so well, but it is. So we'll run with it. And I think if you can get caught in that trap of questioning, why did that do so well? Can I recreate that? And you're just constantly trying to recreate that post. And then it can actually have a negative impact on all the other content, because now you're just trying to recreate something that's already performed really well, rather than just focusing on providing the knowledge and the value that it is that you're trying to give to the audience. Like, I've had a recent post myself where I think it's on like 400,000 views now. I posted it in January, and every day on Instagram, I'm getting notifications that people followed you from this reel, people followed you from this reel. And I click on it, it's that reel. So it was a very high performing reel in the sense that not only did it generate a load of views, but also a large amount of people followed me from it. Like, it's on like 7,000 followers just from that one post now. Whereas sometimes you can get a post that gets hundreds of thousands of views, but you get like 200 people follow you from it. So it's obviously a piece of content that also related heavily to the audience. And I was trying to break it down. I was like, why did this do so well? And I cannot for the life of me figure it out. And I've been thinking, can I replicate it in some way? But because it was such a specific piece of content, it was basically telling the audience, you should create an about me piece of content. That was it. It was me saying, you should have a pinned post on your Instagram saying, this is your history as to how you got to where you are now. That
I
was
saw
it.
that video.
And I was thinking,
Yeah.
the topic itself, I can't recreate it, because that is what it is. I can't say, you need to create an about me one part 2, because that is the content. So I can't really replicate it. The only thing I can think is maybe it was the B-roll that I used, or maybe it was the hook, and that's why the hook was so good that loads of people stayed for it. But I think if you're constantly just trying to, how can I create that viral piece again? How can I create that viral piece again? Then I actually think it's going to have a negative impact, because you're just overthinking it. I think if something's going to go viral, it's going to go viral. I think you should always be focusing on, how can I make this the best piece of content? How can I write a good hook? Can I add a bit of B-roll here? Can I do X, Y, Z thing to make this good? But beyond that, beyond doing all those things, once you hit published, it's kind of out of your control. Like, you don't really have control of it. And I think if you're trying to chase that algorithm, again, you're going to burn out quite quickly, because you're just trying to chase something that you have no control over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. When my wife made that post, I was like, "Are you gonna post today?" Because like that was like the goal. She was like, "I want to get 1,000 followers." I was like, "Well, that's out of your control, but you can post every day, so let's focus on that." And so I was like, "Hey," I think it was on Saturday. I was like, "Are you posting today?" She's like, "No, I don't have anything to post. It's not going to be good." I was like, "Well, it may not be good to you, but somebody else may find value from that. Just like make a post." So she ended up making that post, and then we woke up the next day and it was like blowing up. I was like, I'm so glad that this was the one that did that. That really drove that home for you. Is yes, you want it to be quality, but other people will find value in different things, and so it's not up to you to determine that either.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes the most random of things will just take off, and there's no explanation for it. There's no reason why. Like, and I had a lighting video like a year ago do really well. It wasn't anything amazing. It was just a video telling people how to create like better lighting with their content. And it wasn't even me talking to camera. It was just like 10 seconds long, do this, do this, do that. And it got like 600,000 views, something along those lines. And I was like, right, I'll just do the same one. And the next one didn't do that. I was like, there's just proof. Like, it was pretty much the exact same video, but just a couple of months later. I was like, it's just sometimes things take off and you don't really have control. But what you do have control of is just to keep going, just to keep posting. Some things will take off and you'll just have those moments of like, they'll just spike. But as long as you're just continually going, then you have another spike, and it's continuing going, you'll have another spike. It's kind of just how it works. Just control what you can control.
Let's say somebody's been consistently posting for a few months now, and they're just using their phone, and they want to elevate their content past the current point. What are the top 3 to 5 things that you recommend that they invest in?
It's typically actually the opposite of what people tend to think. I think immediately people go, I'm filming on my phone. I'm going to buy a camera. But I always think that should be assuming you have a relatively newish phone. So let's say you have an iPhone 14, 15, 16. So within the last few years, they all shoot 4K. So they all film half decent quality. I don't think for most people, they're going to see a return on investment on anything like below $1,000 in comparison to their phone. So it's going to be a big investment. Like going from not investing to something like that is going to be a big investment. I think you should actually think small first, where you're actually going to see a larger return on a smaller investment and work up to that bigger investment. So for me, I always recommend people go audio first, because you can pick up like those little DJI mics. They're really small. They're really convenient. You can use them anywheres. They have like active noise cancellation now, which is really, really good. And then maybe $150, $200, something on those lines, which is a hefty investment depending on how big of a budget you have. But in comparison to the $1,000 microphone that you're going to get, you're not going to probably see a big difference in comparison to your phone versus the camera. Whereas audio, if you have terrible audio quality, immediately it's noticeable, whereas versus good audio quality. Like if I'm consuming a piece of content and it sounds good, like I'm like, especially someone who's like into their tech and their cameras and stuff like that. I'm like, they've got a decent microphone, nice. Like they've invested in it. So that's where I'd put my budget first, is just getting a decent microphone of that sort. Like things like this are great. This are of a similar price point, but obviously you're limited to where you can go with that microphone. Like I'm not going to be taking this into the gym with me. It's not exactly portable. Whereas those little DJI mics like that, they're the size of like an AirPods case. You can chuck them in your bag, which means you now have the freedom to create wherever you want, which is kind of the best thing about them. I would then secondly go lighting second. I think lighting plays a huge role on the overall look of your content. Obviously, if you're filming in things like gyms or on the go and stuff like that, you're just going to be using what's in the environment. I would assume most people aren't going into a gym and taking like a full lighting kit to film like a leg press video or something on those lines. But if you're filming the type of content that I create, more educational based, where you're sort of sat down talking to a camera, then I think your second investment should be something like a light. And with light, it is the bigger the light, the softer and the better the look's going to be, essentially. So go as big of a softbox as you possibly can to create as much of a natural look as you can. The smaller the light, the more aggressive it is on your face. So if you imagine someone shining a torch on your face versus you being stood next to a window, it's a much softer look, whereas a torch is quite like a hot point, a hot spot on your face. So get a nice big light. That would be my second investment. And then finally, after that, I would say, can we look at getting maybe a camera now? Okay, cool. We've invested in an audio. Audio sounds good. Lighting's good. Now maybe it's the time to bite the bullet and get a decent camera. There's quite a lot out there. I'm a Sony boy personally, so I'm always going to recommend Sonys. For most people, that sort of entry level where you're going to see a return on that investment above an iPhone, they all have like crazy long names now, but I think it's the Sony EV10 Mark II or something along those lines. That's a good like entry level. I think that's like $1,000, which comes with the lens as well. Then if you're going a little bit more pro, you're looking at maybe double-ish that price. You're looking at like a Sony A7C II, which again is just even better. And then you're looking at something like a Sony FX3, which is now like a $3,000, $2,500. But I tend to find with cameras, the higher the price point, the less you're going to see a noticeable difference between the cameras. Like for most people creating social media content, I don't think you're going to see a noticeable difference as that price point goes up.
What? Because Instagram doesn't even, it like compresses everything down. It doesn't even upload in 4Ks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it would be very very minimal that those benefits that you'd be seeing for that
Yeah,
camera.
exactly. I have heard, and I don't know whether it's true, that Instagram favors higher quality content, so therefore it compresses it less. In the sense of, if they notice someone's content is performing well and it's of a high quality, they will compress it less comparatively to someone's content that isn't of a high quality and doesn't perform very well. They'll compress that more, because essentially they're like, this doesn't do very well. It's using a loads of storage on our platform. Let's shrink it down a little bit. Whereas this is performing really well. We want to keep this as higher quality as possible. But yeah, I shoot my content in 4K, so I can get the maximum amount from it, and then I export it in 1080p. So that therefore I've done the compression work for Instagram rather than doing the compression work for me. Because if you upload it in 4K, then they're going to do everything they can their end to compress that file down, which can be typically quite aggressive. Whereas if you do the compression your end for them, they're like, oh, you've done the hard work for us. Like, all we just need to do is upload it now.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely have uploaded in 4K and let the do the compressing. So
Let them do the
that's a
hard
good
work
point.
for you.
And you mentioned lighting. Like, one of the first thing I noticed when we got on here is this is one of the first ones that I've done that's super early in the morning. I have a huge 5 foot by like 8 foot window right here, and that usually has light pouring in. You can see it looks a lot better than it did at the start. I'm less washed out, and so first thing I did when I got on, I was like, oh, I don't have light. I usually have those backlights turned on as well, but because I didn't have that front light, I had to turn the overhead light on, and so that's something that I'm definitely going to be investing in at this point, is just getting that big softbox so I can control that lighting and kind of create that scenario. Because just looking at my picture now versus the start, obviously way better than where it was, just because the sun's come up and I now have light coming in on me, but definitely could be drastically improved. And I think that'll be where my
I think with that as well, with light, is you have control of it. So in like the scenario that you've given now is, let's say you have some curtains there. Like, if you pull those curtains and you have a light, you're going to have a consistent look continually on your content. So it's always going to look the same. So it's never going to change. Whereas if you don't have a light and you've got the curtains pulled, then like you say, throughout this, it's going to look a little bit different, which means podcast to podcast, the content's going to look a little bit different. And it's sort of just having a bit of a brand identity. It's like these little things that you can stress. But if you can have a continual, consistent look where you use the same light, you have the same lights behind you all the time, then your content looks like recognizable. It has a look to it where, without deeply looking at your content, I can just browse across it quickly and notice, oh, that's your content. Like, I know whose content it is. Like, if I consume some of, like, again, we'll go back to Ali Abdul. If I consume some of his content, I kind of immediately know, like, it's his content. It has like a quite bright, quite vibrant sort of vibe. But equally, if you showed me one of Chris Williamson's podcasts, he's got like two scenarios where it's like the cinematic one, or it's the one in that sort of like more generic podcast studio. But it still has a cohesive look to it. So immediately I'm like, that's a Chris Williamson podcast. Like, I know exactly what it looks like. Joe Rogan's podcast with the infamous like burgundy red curtain behind them. Again, you immediately know it's his podcast because it's just brand recognition and brand identity. It has a consistent and cohesive look about it.
Well, Andy, I have a tradition on this podcast where I ask my guests who would be the most important or the most valuable person that they would want to listen or talk to on a podcast. Who would that person be for you, assuming they're live and well? And if I get them all on, I will, of course, credit their appearance to you.
Who would I want on? I'm trying to think of content that I consume where I'm like, this person is just unbelievable. I think, do you know what? I was going to say someone then like Chris Williamson or something on those lines. And that would be incredible. So if I could have a bonus one, it would be Chris Williamson. But I think someone who's been quite influential on me, and they've kind of just stuck to what they're doing, and they're doing their thing within the content creator space, is Jay Klaus. So I don't know if you know Jay Klaus or if you're aware of Jay Klaus. It's worth looking up. He's had I wouldn't say a massive influence on me, but he's kept me sort of level-headed, because he doesn't tend to play like this trending game. He doesn't get caught out on the shiny object syndrome. He's just been doing his thing, but doing his thing consistently and just chipping away at it. He creates content for creators to help creators grow and scale their brand and business. But he's very level-headed. He seems very down to earth. I've never really had any interactions with him, but I really enjoy his content. He has a podcast, YouTube, Instagram. He's someone I'd love to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do my best to reach out. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time today. Before we sign out, do you want to let people know where they can find you, what they can follow, where should they look you up?
Yeah, 100%. The best place is just type in my name. So Andy Hillocks, so Hillocks, HILLOCKS. That's consistent across Instagram and YouTube. They're sort of my two primary platforms. Instagram's like my primary one. Doing my best to see YouTube out, but it is a beast that I'm battling with. But those are the two where, if you want to find me, type in my name, you should come across me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Andy.
Thank you for listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.